Welcome, fellow explorers, to the heart of the great North American wilderness. These are ancient lands, vast and untamed, stretching from the misty coastlines of the Pacific Northwest to the dense, rolling hills of the Appalachian Mountains. For centuries, these forests have been a source of sustenance, shelter, and profound spiritual connection for the people who call this continent home. But they are also a place of mystery, a realm where the line between the known and the unknown blurs with the shifting shadows of colossal trees. Before the first European settlers ever set foot on these shores, rich and diverse cultures thrived in harmony with this wilderness. From the Salish peoples of British Columbia to the Iroquois of the Northeast, every tribe had its own name, its own stories. For the enigmatic beings believed to dwell deep within the woods, they were known by many names. Sasquatch, meaning wild man of the woods, Junu, the wild woman of the forest, or the stone giants, to name just a few. These weren't mere campfire tales to frighten children. They were an integral part of a complex worldview. Stories passed down through generations, describing powerful, hairy, human-like giants who lived reclusive lives, hidden from the eyes of man. These oral traditions speak of creatures that are both feared and respected. Sometimes they are described as gentle guardians of the forest, other times as formidable beings who could snatch away the careless or the disrespectful. The stories often contain a moral lesson, a reminder to respect the untamed power of nature, to not stray too far from the path, and to acknowledge that we are not the only intelligent beings who walk this earth. What's truly fascinating is the consistency of these descriptions across vast geographical distances and different cultures. Long before the term Bigfoot was ever coined, people were describing a similar entity, tall, bipedal, covered in dark hair, possessing incredible strength, and leaving behind enormous, human-like footprints. As pioneers and settlers pushed westward, they too began to encounter strange things in the deep woods. Trappers, loggers, and minus people who spent their entire lives in the wilderness and knew it intimately returned from the forests with unsettling tales. They spoke of eerie, high-pitched screams echoing through the canyons at night, of massive shadows moving just at the edge of their vision, and of finding colossal tracks that belonged to no known animal. In 1811, the explorer David Thompson found a set of gigantic 14-inch long footprints in the snow near what is now Jasper, Alberta. He couldn't explain them. In the 1880s, future President Theodore Roosevelt recounted a story told to him by a mountain man about his partner being stalked and killed by a large, bipedal beast. These weren't just whispers anymore. They were first-hand accounts from seasoned woodsmen, documented in journals and letters. The term Bigfoot itself wouldn't enter the popular lexicon until much later. In 1958, it all started in Humboldt County, California, when a construction crew building a road deep in the Six Rivers National Forest began finding enormous 16-inch footprints around their worksite. The tracks were so clear and so massive that the workers, half jokingly, half nervously, nicknamed their mysterious visitor Bigfoot. A local journalist named Andrew Genzoli picked up the story for the Humboldt Times, and the name stuck. Suddenly, a phenomenon that had been a part of local lore for centuries was thrust into the national spotlight. The genie was out of the bottle. The modern legend of Bigfoot was born. But let's pause for a moment and truly consider the environment we're talking about. The forests of North America are immense, covering millions of square miles. The Pacific Northwest alone contains some of the densest and most remote temperate rainforests on the planet. Areas like the Olympic Peninsula in Washington or the vast, rugged wilderness of British Columbia are so impenetrable that they're still valleys and mountainsides where humans have likely never set foot. Could something hide in there? It's not just possible, it's plausible. We are still discovering new species of insects, plants, and even small mammals. The idea of a large, intelligent primate eluding scientific discovery in such a vast and complex habitat is not as far-fetched as it might first sound. These woods are more than just trees. They are a living, breathing ecosystem, a complex web of life. They have their own sounds, their own rhythms, their own secrets. Spend enough time here, away from the noise of civilization, and you start to notice things. The snap of a twig that sounds too heavy for a deer. The strange, musky odor on the wind that doesn't belong to any known animal. The unsettling feeling of being watched when you are supposedly all alone. This is the feeling that has fueled the legend for generations. It's the primal sense that in these ancient, towering woods, we are the visitors, and we are not alone. The stories and sightings aren't confined to one small area. They span the entire continent, from the swampy bottomlands of Florida and Arkansas, where he's known as the skunk ape, to the forested regions of Ohio and Pennsylvania. The reports persist. Thousands of people, from all walks of life, hikers, police officers, and even scientists have claimed to see something they cannot explain. While many sightings can be dismissed as misidentification or hoaxes, some are incredibly compelling, told by credible witnesses who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by sharing their story. So, what is it that we are searching for? Is it a relic population of prehistoric apes, a Gigantopithecus, that somehow survived extinction and crossed the Bering Land Bridge into North America? Is it an undiscovered species of primate, a cousin to humanity that evolved in parallel, hidden in the shadows of our own world? Or is it something more, something that blurs the lines between the physical and the supernatural? A spirit of the wilderness made manifest. These are the questions that lie at the heart of our journey. As we venture deeper into this mystery, we'll examine the evidence, we'll listen to the stories, and we'll explore the vast, wild places that this creature is said to call home. We invite you to keep an open mind, to question what you think you know, and to join us as we step into the shadows. The forest is waiting, and its oldest secret is calling. Thank you for joining us on this first step. If you're as intrigued as we are, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of our investigation. We've got a lot more ground to cover. See you next time. Welcome, bike seekers of the unknown. In our last chapter, we touched upon the modern phenomenon of Bigfoot, a creature that has captured the imagination of millions. But what if I told you that this story doesn't begin in the 1950s? What if the tales of a giant, hairy bipedal hominid are woven into the very fabric of North America, stretching back centuries, even millennia, long before a single European settler set foot on this continent? Today, we journey back in time, to an era before the name Bigfoot echoed through the forests. We're exploring the rich, ancient traditions of the indigenous peoples of North America, who have known about this creature for generations. They didn't call him Bigfoot. They had their own names, their own stories, and their own profound understanding of this being that shared their world. This isn't just about folklore. This is about a deep, cultural history that has been passed down through countless generations. For many Native American and First Nations communities, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, this creature isn't a myth. It's a very real part of their cosmology, a physical being that commands respect and caution. The sheer number of different tribal traditions that describe a similar creature is staggering. From the dense rain-soaked forests of British Columbia down to the towering redwoods of Northern California, the stories are consistent in their core details. A massive, hair-covered human-like being that walks on two legs and lives a reclusive existence in the deepest parts of the wilderness, that start with perhaps the most famous indigenous name, the one from which our modern term Sasquatch is derived. The name comes from the Ho'okame'lam language, spoken by the Coast Salish peoples of British Columbia. They call the creature Saskits. But it's crucial to understand that for the Salish, Saskits isn't a monster. It's often seen as a spiritual being, a protector of the forest. Stories passed down describe them as a tribe of hairy people who live in the mountains. They are shy, nocturnal, and try to avoid humans. Some traditions say they can become invisible, that they possess spiritual powers, and that seeing one can be a powerful, life-altering experience. They are regarded with a mixture of awe and fear. You don't seek them out. You respect their territory and hope they grant you safe passage. The elders teach that they are a different kind of people, a people of the wilderness, and to harm one would bring terrible misfortune. Moving south into Washington state, we encounter the Lumi Nation. Their name for the creature is Semiquis, like the Saskits. The Semiquis are described as large, hairy giants. Lummi traditions often portray them as more dangerous than the Salish. They are known to be nocturnal hunters who might steal fish from nets, or even carry people away, especially misbehaving children. These weren't just spooky bedtime stories. They were practical warnings that served to keep children close to the village and away from the dangers of the dense woods after dark. The Sasquatch stories highlight a key aspect of these traditions. They are deeply connected to the landscape and the realities of survival in a wild, untamed environment. Further down the coast, the Yurok people of Northern California have stories of the Oma, or Bigfoot in their language. The Yurok descriptions align closely with modern reports. Tall, powerful, covered in dark hair, with a strong, unpleasant odor. They were known to throw rocks at people who got too close to their territory and to communicate through eerie whistles and guttural sounds. For the Yurok, the Oma were a tangible presence in the Klamath Mountains, a force of nature to be respected and avoided. In the traditions of the Hoopa Valley tribe, also in Northern California, there's a being known as O-Ma-A. Go. Again, the physical description is remarkably consistent. These beings were often seen as guardians of sacred places. To encounter one was a sign, an omen. The stories aren't just about a physical creature. They are imbued with spiritual significance. They teach lessons about respecting boundaries, both physical and spiritual, and about the interconnectedness of all living things. What's so compelling about these indigenous accounts is their consistency and their depth. These aren't isolated tales. They are part of a complex web of cultural knowledge. Many tribes have specific protocols for what to do if you encounter one. Often, the advice is to show no fear, to not make direct eye contact, and to slowly back away, showing respect. Some traditions even include stories of peaceful interactions, of the creatures leaving gifts of woven cedar or strange roots. The descriptions are also incredibly detailed. They speak of the creature's immense strength, its powerful, musky scent often described as a mix of wet dog and something raw. They mention its long arms, its deep-set eyes, and its human-like face, but with more pronounced brow ridges. They describe its gait, a long, fluid stride that allows it to cover vast distances with ease. And, of course, they talk about the footprints, the massive, human-like tracks left behind in the mud, and snow, the very evidence that would eventually give the creature its modern name. For these tribes, the creature was simply a part of the world, like the bear, the cougar, or the eagle. It was a non-human neighbor, a wild man of the woods. The belief wasn't a fringe idea. It was integrated into their daily lives, their spirituality, and their understanding of the natural order. They didn't need plaster casts or blurry photographs to believe. They had generations of first-hand accounts, of stories passed from grandparent to grandchild around the warmth of a fire. It's also important to recognize the diversity within these traditions. While the core description of a large, hairy hominid is consistent, the nature and temperament of the creature can vary from tribe to tribe. For some, it's a gentle giant, a shy relative. For others, it's a dangerous ogre, a cautionary figure. This diversity likely reflects the different environments and experiences of each individual tribe. A community living in a resource-rich, relatively safe area might have a more benign view than a tribe living in a harsher, more perilous landscape. These ancient stories provide an incredible foundation for the modern mystery. They show us that people have been encountering and documenting these creatures for a very, very long time. Before the term Bigfoot was coined in 1958, following a newspaper report about giant footprints at a construction site in California, the being already had dozens of names: Sasquatch Semekus, Omaskukum, Chitonka, Bukwas. Bukwas. The list goes on and on. By studying these indigenous traditions, we gain more than just a list of names. We gain a new perspective. We move away from the sensationalized monster hunt mentality and toward a more respectful and nuanced understanding. We see the creature not as an anomaly to be captured, but as a long-standing inhabitant of the North American wilderness. A being with its own place in the ecosystem and a deep history intertwined with that of humanity. These oral histories are an invaluable, and often overlooked, piece of the puzzle. They are the original field reports, a library of knowledge preserved through the spoken word. They remind us that long before we went looking for Bigfoot, he or they were already here, living in the shadows of the mountains, a powerful and mysterious presence, known and respected by the first peoples of this land. As we continue our journey, we'll see how these ancient legends collided with the modern world, creating the phenomenon we know today. But it's essential to remember where it all began. It began in the stories and the wisdom of the indigenous tribes, who knew the wild men of the woods long before they had a name for us. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the ancient history of Sasquatch. It's a topic that deserves our utmost respect and attention. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in our investigation. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep seeking and stay curious. Ever wonder where the name Sasquatch actually comes from? We hear it all the time, see it in headlines, and it immediately conjures up images of a giant, ape-like creature roaming the deep woods. But the name itself holds a story, a history that's as fascinating as the creature it describes. Today, we're diving deep into the linguistic roots of one of the most famous names in cryptozoology. So, grab your gear, and let's trek back in time to uncover the true meaning of Sasquatch. The journey of this word begins not in a modern newsroom or a Hollywood script, but with the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest. Specifically, those who speak Holcomellum is a language of the Salish people, whose traditional territories span across what is now British Columbia and Washington state. For generations, these communities have passed down stories of a mysterious figure dwelling in the mountains and forests. They had a name for this being, a word in their native tongue. Now, pronunciation is key here. The Holcomellum word is S-S-Q-E-T-S. Can you hear the similarity? It's pretty close, right? This isn't a coincidence. The modern term Sasquatch is a direct, albeit anglicized, version of this ancient name. But how did this transformation happen? How did SSQETs become Sasquatch? The credit, or perhaps the responsibility, for this change largely goes to a man named J.W. Burns. In the 1920s, Burns was an Indian agent and a school teacher on the Chehalis Indian Reserve in British Columbia. He became fascinated by the local stories and legends told by the Stales people, a Coast Salish First Nation. He listened intently as they described their encounters and the long-held traditions surrounding a wild man of the woods. Burns collected these stories, and he wanted to share them with a wider English-speaking audience. When he began writing articles for Canadian newspapers and magazines, he faced a challenge. How could he spell SSQETs in a way that English readers could easily pronounce? He experimented with different spellings, and the one that stuck was Sasquatch. It was his best attempt to phonetically represent the Holcomellum word. In 1929, his articles started appearing, introducing the term Sasquatch to the world outside of the Salish communities. And just like that, a legend was born into popular culture. So, we know where the word came from, but what does it actually mean? This is where it gets really interesting. In Holcomellum, Sasquatch doesn't translate to Bigfoot or ape man. The meaning is more profound and descriptive. It translates roughly to wild man, or more evocatively, hairy man or hairy man of the mountains. Think about that. The original term wasn't focused on the size of its feet, but on its fundamental nature. A wild, hairy, human-like being that belongs to the wilderness. This original meaning paints a very different picture from the monster-like caricature we often see today. The term wild man implies something that is part of the natural world, untamed and separate from human civilization, but perhaps not inherently monstrous. It suggests a being that is almost a part of the forest itself, a hairy forest dweller. It evokes a sense of respect and caution, rather than just fear. The stories J.W. Burns collected were not just scary campfire tales. They were accounts of a powerful, spiritual being that demanded respect. For the Stales and other Salish peoples, the SSQETs is a significant figure in their cosmology and oral history, a protector of the land, a being to be avoided and revered. When we contrast this with the term Bigfoot, the difference becomes clear. Bigfoot is a name that originated in 1958 after large, mysterious footprints were discovered by a bulldozer operator named Jerry Crew in Northern California. The name is purely descriptive of the physical evidence found Big Feet. It's a catchy, sensational headline grabber, but it lacks the cultural depth and historical significance of Sasquatch. Bigfoot focuses on a single physical characteristic, while Sasquatch, rooted in SSQETs, speaks to the very essence of the being's existence, wild, hairy entity of the forest. This linguistic journey is crucial for any serious researcher or enthusiast. Understanding the origin of the word Sasquatch helps us appreciate the deep cultural context from which these stories emerged. It moves the conversation beyond just a hunt for a monster and towards an understanding of a long-standing tradition and belief system. It reminds us that before it was a pop culture icon, the Sasquatch was, and still is, a significant figure in the rich tapestry of Indigenous oral history. The name itself is a bridge to that history. So, when J.W. Burns anglicized SSQETs to Sasquatch, he did more than just coin a new word. He unknowingly opened a door for the rest of the world to peek into the ancient traditions of the Salish people. While the popular understanding may have been simplified over the years, the original meaning remains embedded in the word itself. It is a permanent tribute to the people who first named the wild man of the woods. Next time you hear the word Sasquatch, remember its journey. It's not just a spooky name. It's a piece of living history, a word that carries the weight of generations of stories, sightings, and cultural significance. It is a reminder that the mystery of the Sasquatch is deeply woven into the human experience on this continent, far predating the first blurry photograph or plaster cast of a giant footprint. The name itself tells a story of respect for the wild and the mysterious beings that may inhabit it. What are your thoughts on this? Does knowing the original meaning of Sasquatch change your perspective on the creature? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to read your opinions. We've got more fascinating chapters of this story to uncover in our series, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Thanks for joining me on this linguistic expedition today. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, truth seekers and story lovers, to our ongoing exploration of one of the world's most enduring mysteries. In our previous chapters, we've journeyed through historical accounts and modern sightings. Today, we're going deeper, traveling back in time to the very roots of the legend, to the Pacific Northwest, the heartland of Sasquatch. This is Chapter 4, The Salish Legends. Before the word Bigfoot ever entered our vocabulary, the indigenous peoples of this lush, rain-soaked landscape had their own names, their own stories, and their own profound understanding of the creature we seek. For the Coast Salish tribes of British Columbia and Washington State, this being was not just a myth or a monster. It was, and is, a real, physical entity, deeply woven into the fabric of their culture, spirituality, and daily life. The very word Sasquatch is an anglicized version of the whole Camelum Salish word Saskets, which roughly translates to wild man of the woods. This isn't a campfire story invented for tourists. This is an ancient tradition passed down through countless generations. Let's step into their world. Imagine dense, old-growth forests where the trees are so tall they seem to touch the sky. Moss hangs from every branch like a wizard's beard, and the ground is a soft carpet of ferns and fallen needles. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and cedar. Rivers carve their way through the landscape, their waters running cold and clear. This is the traditional territory of the Salish people, and it is the domain of the Sasquatch. For many Salish communities, Sasquatch is seen as a kind of spiritual protector of the land. They are powerful, intelligent beings who exist in a liminal space, somewhere between the human world and the spirit world. They're not simply animals. They possess a consciousness, a language, and a complex social structure of their own. Elders speak of them with a deep respect, cautioning their children not to mock or disrespect these forest dwellers. They are a reminder that humanity is not the only intelligent life form on this planet, and that the wilderness holds powers we don't fully comprehend. One of the most common threads in Salish lore is the idea of Sasquatch as a messenger. A sighting was often seen as an omen, a sign that something significant was about to happen. Sometimes, it was a warning to the community to return to traditional ways, to respect the balance of nature. If people were overhunting or disrespecting the land, a Sasquatch might make its presence known. A glimpse at the edge of a clearing, a powerful whoop, echoing through the valley as a reminder to correct their path. They are, in a sense, the ultimate guardians of ecological balance. But the stories are not all benevolent. The Sasquatch is also a formidable, powerful being that commands respect through its sheer physical presence. There are numerous tales passed down through oral tradition of encounters that are both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Stories tell of Sasquatch beings who could move with incredible speed and silence. Despite their immense size, they were known to sometimes take things from human settlements, not out of malice, but perhaps out of curiosity or need. Smoked fish or blankets might go missing from a drying rack, a subtle reminder of who truly shares the forest. One recurring narrative involves the abduction of humans, particularly children or women who strayed too far from the village. However, these aren't simple monster stories. Often, the abducted person would be returned, unharmed, but forever changed by their experience. They would return with new knowledge, a deeper understanding of the forest, or sometimes they would simply be disoriented, with no memory of what happened. These stories served as powerful cautionary tales, teaching practical lessons about staying close to the safety of the community and respecting the boundaries of the wilderness. They reinforced the idea that the forest is a place of immense power that should not be entered lightly. Let us consider the Sing Lo people, a Salish group from the Fraser Valley in British Columbia. For them, the Sasquatch is an integral part of their sexuality, their spiritual world. They believe these beings have their own families, their own communities, and live in remote, mountainous areas, far from human interference. They are considered a tribe of non-human. Saint-Loy elders have spoken about specific protocols for what to do if you encounter one. You should not stare, show fear, or make aggressive movements. Instead, you should show respect, acknowledge its presence, and slowly back away. It is an interaction between two intelligent peoples, not between a person and a beast. This perspective is crucial. In the Western world, the quest for Bigfoot is often about proving its existence, capturing it on film, finding its bones, or even capturing one alive. For the Salish, this approach is fundamentally disrespectful. It's like trying to prove the existence of a neighboring tribe. They are already known to exist. The focus is not on proof, but on relationship, on coexistency, and on respecting their right to remain hidden. To them, the Sasquatch's elusive nature is intentional. They choose to stay away from the noise and disruption of the modern world. Another fascinating aspect is the connection between Sasquatch and shamanism or spiritual power. In some traditions, a close encounter with a Sasquatch could bestow great spiritual power upon a person. To see one and survive the encounter was a sign of immense spiritual strength. Shamans might even seek out these beings in the spirit world to gain knowledge about healing or to see into the future. This elevates the Sasquatch from a mere cryptid to a powerful spiritual ally, a gatekeeper to deeper forms of wisdom. The Lumi Nation, another Coast Salish tribe in Washington state, has similar traditions. They refer to the creature as Semequas. Like their northern relatives, they view them as a people of the forest. They speak of their incredible strength's ability to rip trees out of the ground, but also of their shy and secretive nature. One story passed down tells of the Semex helping a lost child find their way back home, leaving a trail of broken branches to guide them. This duality, immense power, combined with occasional acts of gentleness, is a hallmark of these ancient legends. It paints a picture of a complex being, not a one-dimensional monster. These stories are not relics of a forgotten past. They are alive today. Indigenous artists carve the image of Sasquatch onto totem poles, masks, and storyboards, placing it alongside other powerful figures, like the Thunderbird and the killer whale. The stories are still told around fires, and the warnings are still heeded. When a new road is planned through a remote mountain pass, or a logging operation encroaches on pristine wilderness, elders will sometimes speak up, warning that the project is disturbing the home of the Sasquatch. It's a modern-day expression of an ancient ecological wisdom. So, what can we, as outside investigators, learn from the Salish legends? First and foremost, we can learn a lesson in humility. The quest for Bigfoot shouldn't just be about plaster casts and blurry photographs. It should also be about listening. It should be about respecting the thousands of years of accumulated knowledge held within these indigenous communities. They offer a perspective that is far richer and more nuanced than the simple ape-man theory. They teach us that the Sasquatch is more than just a biological anomaly. It is a cultural and spiritual phenomenon. The stories provide a framework for understanding the creature's behavior, its elusiveness, its intelligence, its powerful connection to the land. Perhaps the reason Sasquatch has never been captured is because it is far more intelligent and aware than we give it credit for. Perhaps it avoids us because it understands us better than we understand it. As we continue our journey, let's carry this wisdom with us. Let's look at the forest, not just as a place to search for evidence, but as a living, breathing entity, full of ancient powers and mysteries. The Salish people have coexisted with the Sasquatch for millennia. Their legends are not just folklore. They are a survival guide, a spiritual text, and a historical record all rolled into one. They are the oldest, most detailed, and most profound chapter in the entire story of this incredible being. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the Salish legends. The story is far from over. In our next chapter, we'll return to the modern era and examine some of the most compelling physical evidence ever collected. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Your support makes this journey possible. Until next time, keep an open mind and keep searching. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the world of myths and legends. In our last chapter, we painted a picture of a terrifying monster, a creature of shadow and fear. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if the beast we've come to dread is, in fact, something far more complex, something almost noble? Today, we explore a completely different perspective, one held by many indigenous tribes and ancient cultures. This is Chapter 5, Guardian of the Forest. Forget the image of a mindless predator. Instead, picture a powerful, ancient entity, woven from the very fabric of the wilderness itself. In these traditions, the creature isn't a monster to be hunted, but a sacred protector, a guardian spirit of the land. It doesn't stalk the innocent. It serves as nature's enforcer, its own form of divine justice. The stories don't speak of random attacks, but of calculated retribution. This guardian is the immune system of the forest, and its targets are those who bring sickness to the land. Think about the loggers who clear-cut ancient groves without a second thought, the miners who poison rivers with their runoff, or the hunters who kill for sport, leaving waste behind. These are the individuals who attract the guardian's attention. According to these legends, the creature senses the pain of the earth. When a tree that has stood for 1,000 years is felled, the guardian feels it. When a stream that has run pure for millennia is tainted, the guardian tastes the poison. It is the physical manifestation of nature's wrath. Let's delve into some of these tales. The Ute people of the American West have stories of a stickman figure that watches over the mountain forests. While it can be frightening, its purpose is often to scare away those who would harm the land, using eerie whistles and strange sounds to drive them off before resorting to physical force. It's a warning system. Similarly, in the Amazon rainforest, certain tribes speak of the Curupira, a spirit with backward-facing feet to confuse hunters and loggers, leading them astray deep within the jungle until they are hopelessly lost. The Curupira is a trickster. Yes, but a trickster with a purpose, to protect its home from intrusion and destruction. These aren't just spooky campfire stories. They are moral allegories. They teach a profound respect for the natural world. The lesson is simple. If you enter the forest with respect, offering gratitude and taking only what you need, the guardian will leave you in peace. You might even feel its protective presence. But if you enter with greed in your heart, with disrespect for the life that teems around you, you are marking yourself as a threat, and the guardian will respond to that threat. The fear it inspires is not for the average hiker or the respectful camper, but for the Consider the narrative shift this creates. The creature is no longer an it, but a he or she or even a they are being with agency, intelligence, and a deep-seated purpose. Its actions, which seem monstrous from an outside perspective, are seen as righteous from within this belief system. It's the ultimate environmental activist, a force of nature that fights back when pushed too far. The howls in the night aren't a sign of bloodlust, but a lament for the damage being done, a warning call to all who would listen. This perspective also explains the creature's elusiveness. Why can't we ever seem to capture it? According to these beliefs, it's because the creature is part of the land itself. It can melt into the shadows, merge with the trees, and move with the silence of the wind because it is the wind and the trees and the shadows. It doesn't live in the forest. It is the forest, awakened and given form. Trying to catch it is like trying to catch the fog or trap the echo of a canyon. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the entity truly is. So, when we hear stories of people vanishing in the wilderness, or of logging camps being mysteriously destroyed, maybe we're not looking at the work of a monster. Perhaps we are seeing the work of a protector, a guardian punishing those who have broken the sacred laws of the land. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That nature isn't just a passive victim of human activity, but has its own powerful, and sometimes terrifying, means of self-preservation. It forces us to ask ourselves, are we visitors in its home, or are we invaders? This reframing transforms the creature from a simple cryptid into a potent symbol of ecological balance. In a world where we are facing unprecedented environmental challenges, these ancient stories feel more relevant than ever. They remind us that our actions have consequences, and that the wilderness, we so often take for granted, has a power and a spirit all its own. The guardian isn't hunting us, it's holding us accountable. Next time you're out in the deep woods and you feel that primal sense of being watched, maybe it's not a monster in the shadows. Maybe it's a guardian, observing you, judging your intent, and perhaps, if you walk with a light step and a respectful heart, you have nothing to fear at all. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration into a different side of the legend. It's a humbling and thought-provoking perspective. What do you think? Is the creature a monster or a protector? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Until then, stay curious. Have you ever heard a sound in the forest so strange, so unsettling, that it made the hair on your arms stand up? A cry that sounds almost human, but not quite. For the Quequieto people of the Pacific Northwest, that sound carries a chilling name. In their ancient traditions, she is the wild woman of the woods, a towering, hairy giantess who stalks the dense, misty forests. The stories say she's a terrifying figure, with pursed lips that let out a haunting call. A sound meant to mimic the wind, but designed to lure unsuspecting children deep into the woods. She's often depicted as drowsy and slow-witted, but don't let that fool you. In the legends, she carries a large basket on her back, not for gathering berries, but for snatching children who wander too far from their village. She takes them back to her cave to feast on them. It's a classic boogeyman story, a cautionary tale told to keep kids safe and close to home. But Januqua is more complex than just a simple monster. She's a dualistic being, a figure of both terror and immense wealth. In some Quaquiatl ceremonies, a dancer wearing the mask of Januqua appears. This mask is iconic, with deep-set eyes, a prominent, hooked nose, and those signature pursed lips. The dancer moves clumsily, embodying her sleepy nature, yet defeating Januqua or outsmarting her can bring incredible fortune. She is the keeper of a magical treasure called a copper, a shield-like object of immense spiritual and material value. Those who gain a copper from her are granted supernatural powers, wealth, and high status within the tribe. So, she represents both the ultimate danger of the wilderness and the extraordinary rewards it can offer. She is death and riches, fear and power, all rolled into one. Now, let's take a step back and think about this. A tall, hairy, human-like creature living in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, known for its distinctive, haunting cries. Does that sound familiar? For centuries, long before the term Bigfoot was ever coined, the indigenous peoples of this region have told stories of similar beings. The Salish people of Sasquatch and the Quaquietl of Januqua. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are these just myths? Or are they rooted in something real? The similarities between the Iroquois legend and modern Bigfoot sightings are striking. Both are described as reclusive giants covered in hair. Both are known for their powerful, eerie vocalizations that echo through the mountains and forests. While Iroquois is specifically female and known for stealing children, the core elements of a large, bipedal, primate-like being roaming the woods are undeniably present. Cryptozoologists and Bigfoot researchers often point to these ancient legends as evidence that these creatures are not a modern invention. They argue that these stories are cultural interpretations of real encounters, passed down through generations. Think about the environment. The Pacific Northwest is a vast, largely unexplored wilderness. Its dense rainforests, rugged mountains, and remote valleys could easily hide a species of large animal from the outside world. For the Kwakiutl people, who have lived in this land for thousands of years, the forest is not just a collection of trees. It's a living entity, full of spirits and powerful beings. Iroquois is the personification of the forest's wild, untamable nature. She represents its dangers getting lost, the presence of predators, but also its profound mysteries. The child-stealing aspect is particularly fascinating. In many cultures, boogeyman figures serve a practical purpose, to enforce social rules and keep children safe. Don't go into the woods alone, or Iroquois will get you, is a much more effective warning than a simple be careful. It taps into a primal fear of the unknown and the dark. But could it be more? Some have theorized that if a creature like Bigfoot did exist, occasional encounters, perhaps even the disappearance of a person, could Isolé have been woven into the mythology of a child-stealing monster over the centuries? What's also compelling is how the Iroquois figure is portrayed in Kwakiutl art. The masks and carvings are not just scary monster faces. They are powerful, spiritual objects. The artists who carve them are highly respected, and the masks are used in important ceremonies like the potlatch, a complex gift-giving festival. When a dancer wears the Iroquois mask, they are not just pretending, they are channeling the spirit of the giantess herself. This deep cultural integration suggests that Iroquois is far more than a simple campfire story. She is a fundamental part of the Kwakiutl worldview, a bridge between the human world and the wild, spiritual world of the forest. So, when we look at the modern phenomenon of Bigfoot, it's impossible to ignore the deep historical roots found in stories like that of Iroquois. Are people who claim to see Bigfoot today simply projecting these old myths onto shadows and misidentified animals? Or are these ancient myths, like the Kwakiutl tale of the wild woman of the woods, the earliest recorded sightings of a creature that continues to elude us? To this day, the legends don't provide definitive proof, but they offer a compelling and ancient context. They show us that for as long as humans have lived alongside the vast, dark forests of the Pacific Northwest, they have told stories of a giant, hairy figure watching from just beyond the firelight. The tale of Iroquois serves as a powerful reminder that the world is filled with mysteries, and that modern science doesn't have all the answers. These stories have survived for a reason. They carry the wisdom, fears, and beliefs of a people deeply connected to their land. Whether she is a literal monster, a metaphor for the dangers of nature, or a cultural memory of a real creature, the wild woman of the woods continues to haunt the forests of our imagination, her strange, mournful cry echoing across the centuries. What do you think? Are these just stories, or is there something more to the legend of Iroquois and her eerie connection to Bigfoot? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for journeying into the woods with me today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into mythology and mystery, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. We'll see you in the next one. Have you ever heard whispers of giants that roam the forests? Their skin as hard as stone, their presence both a blessing and a curse. Let's journey east into the rich tapestry of Iroquois tradition, where the echoes of these mysterious beings still resonate today. Long before the modern image of Bigfoot took shape, the people of the Iroquois Confederacy told stories of powerful creatures known as the Stone Giants. These weren't just simple monsters. The Iroquois tales paint a complex picture of these beings, sometimes referred to as the Genosqua, or imagine a creature of immense size and strength, covered in shaggy hair, with skin so tough that conventional arrows would simply shatter upon impact. Their name, stone giants, wasn't just a metaphor. It was a literal description of their near invulnerability. They were said to dwell deep within the mountains and dense forests of the Northeast, their booming calls echoing through the valleys. Now, what makes these stories so captivating is their duality. The stone giants weren't always malevolent. In some legends, they are depicted as solitary, almost tragic figures, living on the fringes of the human world. There are accounts of them helping lost hunters find their way home or sharing knowledge of the forest. They could be seen as powerful guardians of the natural world, possessing a deep, ancient wisdom that humans had long forgotten. Picture a lonely giant, observing a human struggle and deciding, in a moment of compassion, to offer a helping hand. This benevolent side suggests a complex relationship between humanity and these enigmatic beings, one built on a delicate balance of respect and caution. But there's a darker side to the lore, a much more terrifying one. Many more stories cast the stone giants as fearsome destroyers. Driven by an insatiable hunger, they would descend from their mountain lairs to raid villages, their sheer power overwhelming any defense. They were a force of nature, an embodiment of the wilderness's unforgiving power. Entire communities were said to have been wiped out by these rampaging giants, leaving behind nothing but destruction and a chilling warning for others. These tales served as cautionary lessons, reminding people of the dangers that lurked just beyond the safety of their village fires. So, how did one fight a creature whose skin was like rock? The Iroquois legends are clever. They often speak of heroes who used their wits rather than brute force. One common theme is tricking the giants. A famous story tells of a hero who lured a stone giant to a sweat lodge. The hero then heated the rocks to an extreme temperature, causing the giant's stony skin to crack and splinter, making it vulnerable. This highlights a key cultural value. Intelligence and strategy are more powerful than raw strength. It's a classic David versus Goliath narrative, where the clever underdog triumphs over the seemingly invincible foe. Another fascinating aspect is the origin of the stone giants. Where did they come from? Some traditions say they were once human, but their hearts grew cold and hard, turning their bodies to stone as a reflection of their inner nature. This transformation story is a powerful moral allegory about the dangers of losing one's humanity, of becoming callous and cruel. It suggests that the monster isn't just an external threat, but a potential that lies within all of us if we let our compassion wither away. These legends are more than just campfire stories. They are deeply woven into the cultural and spiritual fabric of the Iroquois people. They explain natural phenomena, teach moral lessons, and reinforce the community's relationship with the world around them. The mountains and forests weren't just geography. They were the homes of powerful beings that demanded respect. The stories of the stone giants served as a map of a living, breathing world, one filled with both wonder and peril. Now, let's connect this to the broader mystery we've been exploring. When we hear these ancient Iroquois accounts of giant, hairy, powerful beings living in the mountains, it's hard not to see the parallels with modern-day Bigfoot sightings. Could the Sasquatch, the stone giants, be an ancient regional variant of the same phenomenon? The descriptions are strikingly similar. Immense size, shaggy hair, a reclusive nature, and an intimidating presence. While the stone skin might be a unique mythological element, it could also be a way of describing a creature that was incredibly tough and resilient to primitive weapons. Perhaps these Iroquois stories aren't just myths. Perhaps they are an oral history, a record of real encounters passed down through countless generations, embellished over time with cultural and moral significance. The consistency of these tales across different Iroquois nations, the Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Mohawk, lends them a certain weight. This wasn't just one person's tale. It was a shared cultural experience. The belief in these beings was real and had real-world consequences, influencing everything from hunting patterns to village placement. Think about it. These stories from the Northeast provide an indigenous North American context for a creature that many today believe still roams the continent's wildest places. They are a vital piece of the puzzle, a historical anchor for the modern mystery of Sasquatch. The hairy men of the Iroquois aren't just echoes. They are the foundation upon which centuries of similar sightings have been built. They remind us that for the original inhabitants of this land, these creatures were not a subject of debate, but a fact of life. As we delve deeper into this mystery, it's crucial to approach these traditional stories with the respect they deserve. They're not simply Bigfoot reports in an ancient guise. They are rich, complex narratives that hold profound cultural meaning. But within that meaning, we find a powerful and enduring echo of a giant in the woods, a creature that has captivated the human imagination for centuries, whether we call it Genesqua, Sasquatch, or Bigfoot. The stone giants may have been vanquished in legend, but their story, their very essence, lives on. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of Iroquois lore. The history and culture surrounding this topic are incredibly deep and fascinating. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. See you next time. Deep within the misty peaks and shadowed valleys of the Appalachian Mountains, ancient stories whisper on the wind. These are the lands of the Cherokee people, and their traditions are rich with tales of powerful spirits who walk the hidden paths of the forest. Today, we journey into the heart of this folklore to uncover the story of one of the most enigmatic and revered figures, Sul'kalu', the great slant-eyed giant. Who is Sul'kalu'? The name itself, meaning he has them slanted, points to his most striking feature, his eyes. But he is far more than just a name or a physical trait. To the Cherokee, he is a powerful, ancient spirit of the hunt, a guardian of the game animals, and a being who commands both immense respect and a healthy dose of fear. He is a giant, yes, but not a mindless brute. Sul'kalu' is described as being incredibly strong, profoundly wise, and possessing a deep connection to the natural world he inhabits. His home is said to be a magnificent cave high on a mountainside, a place called Sun, which translates to the darkening land. From this mystical abode, he watches over the deer, the bears, the birds, and all the creatures of the forest. He is their protector, their master, hunters who showed proper respect, who performed the correct rituals, and offered thanks for their kills, might find their hunts blessed by Sul'kalu'. He could guide a deer into a hunter's path or ensure an arrow flew true. But those who were greedy, who were wasteful, or who disrespected the sanctity of the hunt would face his wrath. He could lead them astray, hide the animals from their sight, or worse, confront them directly. One of the most famous tales involves a young hunter who, seeking a wife, encounters Sul'kalu's two beautiful daughters. To win their hand, he must prove his worth to the giant himself. This wasn't a test of brute strength, but of skill, respect, and endurance. In some versions of the story, the hunter must demonstrate his ability to hunt without modern weapons, relying only on his wits, and his understanding of the forest, and understanding that Sul'kalu' himself embodies. This story highlights a key aspect of the giant's character. He is not inherently malevolent. He is a gatekeeper, a tester of character, and a powerful father figure who demands respect not just for himself, but for his family and his domain. The legends often place him in specific, real-world locations. The Tuckasegee River area and the mountains around what is now Kalohi, North Carolina, are particularly rich with stories of his presence. It is said that one of his handprints is permanently impressed into a rock face on a cliff near the river, a tangible reminder of his power and his connection to the land. This blending of the mythical and the geographical makes the story of Sul'kalu' feel incredibly present and alive, even today. For the Cherokee, these weren't just stories. They were living histories, cautionary tales, and spiritual guides woven into the very fabric of the landscape. As European settlers moved into the Appalachian region, they too heard whispers of the giant in the woods. While the cultural context was different, the core elements of a powerful, mysterious being guarding the mountains resonated. The figure of Sul'kalu' became part of the broader tapestry of Appalachian folklore, sometimes blending with tales of other mountain spirits or cryptids. He represents the wildness, the untamable spirit of the mountains themselves. He is a symbol of a world that existed long before roads and cities, a world governed by the laws of nature, not of man. The descriptions of Sul'kalu' paint a vivid picture. He is often depicted as a towering figure, covered in hair, with a commanding presence. His slant eyes are his defining feature, giving him an otherworldly, watchful appearance. He is a liminal being, existing between the world of humans and the world of spirits, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. He reminds us that the forest is not just a collection of trees and animals. It is a living entity, with its own guardians and its own ancient rules. To walk in his domain is to walk in a place of power, a place where respect is paramount. The enduring legacy of Sulkalu is a testament to the power of oral tradition. These stories were passed down from generation to generation, not just as entertainment, but as vital lessons about how to live in balance with the world. They taught courage, respect for elders and nature, and the consequences of arrogance and greed. Sulkalu is more than just a giant. He is a complex and multifaceted spirit, a provider, a protector, a judge, and a king of his wild kingdom. He is the personification of the raw, untamed power and deep, ancient wisdom of the Appalachian Mountains. Even now, when you walk through the ancient forests of North Carolina and Tennessee, beneath a canopy of old-growth trees, it's easy to feel a sense of being watched. You can almost hear the echo of the old tailies, and the rustling leaves, and the distant call of a bird. Is it just the wind? Or is it the spirit of Sulkalu, the slant-eyed giant, still keeping his silent vigil over the mountains he has always called home? The stories remind us to tread lightly, to listen closely, and to always show respect for the spirits of the land. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of Cherokee folklore. These stories are a vital part of our shared cultural heritage, and it's a privilege to share them with you. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you and miss our next adventure into the world of myth and legend. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the world of myths and legends. Today, we venture into the dense, ancient forests and along the vast, shimmering shores of North America's Great Lakes. This region, rich in natural beauty and history, is also home to powerful stories passed down through generations by the indigenous tribes who have called this land home for millennia. We're about to explore the tailies of the Great Lakes forest spirits, the large, hairy guardians said to protect sacred groves and lakes from those who would do them harm. Imagine walking through a forest where the trees are so tall they seem to touch the sky, and the only sounds are the rustling leaves and the distant call of a loon across the water. It's in these very places that the Anishinaabe peoples, including the Ojibwe and Potawatomi, speak of powerful beings, guardians of the natural world. These aren't monsters to be feared in the way we might think of them today. Instead, they are deeply respected, seen as protectors of the land, enforcing a sacred balance between humanity and nature. One of the most well-known of these beings is often referred to in Anishinaabe stories, sometimes known by names that translate to Hairy One or Man of the Woods. Descriptions paint a picture of a creature that is tall, broad, and covered in thick, dark hair, walking on two legs like a human, but possessing a strength and connection to the wild that is far beyond our own. These beings are often described as shy and reclusive, preferring to stay hidden in the deepest parts of the forest, far from human settlements. Their role, according to the lore, is that of a warden. They watch over sacred sites, special groves of trees, hidden waterfalls, and secluded parts of the Great Lakes themselves. These were places of spiritual significance, where ceremonies were held, medicines were gathered, or where the spirits of the land were considered to be most powerful. The guardians ensured these areas remained undisturbed and respected. If a person entered these sacred spaces with a greedy heart or ill intentions, perhaps to overhunt, cut down ancient trees without reason, or pollute the clean waters, they might just have an encounter. The stories often don't depict these guardians as inherently aggressive. Instead, their actions serve as warnings. A trespasser might hear a loud, piercing whistle from the trees, a sound that doesn't belong to any known animal. They might hear heavy footsteps just beyond their line of sight, or find massive branches broken and arranged in a way that blocks their path. Some tailies even speak of rocks being thrown from unseen hands, not to injure, but to frighten the intruder away, to make them understand they are not welcome. These encounters were a clear message from the spirit world. You are treading on sacred ground. Turn back. For the people who lived in harmony with the land, these guardians were not a threat. They were a reminder of the respect owed to nature. They embodied the idea that the wilderness is not just a collection of resources for humans to take, but a living, breathing entity with its own power and its own protectors. The forest had a voice, and sometimes that voice was a loud, chilling cry in the night. It's fascinating how these stories connect to a universal human experience. Almost every culture around the world has tales of wild men or forest spirits. From the Yeti of the Himalayas to the Huron in China and the European wild man of the Middle Ages, humanity has long been captivated by the idea of a half-human, half-wild being living just on the edge of our civilized world. But in the Great Lakes region, these stories are unique. They are less about a monster and more about a protector, a physical manifestation of the spirit of the wilderness itself. These guardians were also a way to teach important lessons to the younger generations. Children were told stories about the hairy forest men to instill in them a respect for the woods and a healthy sense of caution. Don't wander too far from the village, the elders would say. Respect the boundaries, listen to the forest, and it will be good to you. Ignore its warnings, and you might meet the one who watches. This was practical advice, keeping children safe from the very real dangers of getting lost or encountering predators. But it was wrapped in a layer of spiritual and cultural significance that made the lesson much more powerful. Think about the psychology of it. If you believe that a powerful, supernatural guardian is watching over a sacred place, you are far more likely to treat that place with reverence. It's a form of ecological conservation rooted in spirituality. These stories helped maintain the delicate balance of the ecosystem for thousands of years. They were an oral law, a sacred contract between the people and the land they depended on. The forest provided food, medicine, and shelter, and in return, the people offered respect, gratitude, and care, enforced by the watchful eyes of its spiritual protectors. As European settlers moved into the region, these stories began to change and merge with new folklore. The Anishinaabe guardians of the forests became conflated with the settlers' own tales, eventually blending into the modern legend of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Today, when people report sightings of a large, hairy, bipedal creature in the forests of the Great Lakes, they are tapping into a legend that is far older and deeper than they might realize. They are, in a way, experiencing the echo of these ancient guardian spirits. But for the indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes, these are not just campfire stories or monster myths. They are part of a living cultural and spiritual tradition. They represent a worldview where the natural world is imbued with spirit and power, and where humanity's role is not to dominate, but to coexist. The forest spirits are a powerful symbol of nature's untamed strength and its inherent right to exist, free from human exploitation. They remind us that some places should remain wild, untouched, and sacred. So, the next time you find yourself near the sprawling forests of Michigan, Wisconsin, or Ontario, and you feel that prickling sensation of being watched from the tree line, take a moment. Listen to the wind. Remember the ancient stories of the guardians who walk these woods. Whether you see them as myth, as a real creature, or as a powerful metaphor for the wild, their message remains the same. Treat this land with respect, for you are a visitor in a very old, very sacred home. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the Great Lakes forest spirits. It's a privilege to share these incredible stories. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more adventures into the world of myth and folklore. We'd love to have you with us. Until next time, stay curious. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the world's most fascinating legends. Today, we're venturing into the vast, frozen landscapes of the far north, to the lands of Alaska and the Arctic Circle. This is a realm of breathtaking beauty, unforgiving, cold, and ancient stories whispered by the Inuit and other northern peoples for generations. Among these tales are the legends of colossal, hairy giants who roam the icy wilderness. Figures known as the Tornit, or sometimes the Iroquois. Imagine the endless expanse of snow and ice, where the wind howls and the aurora borealis dances across the night sky. In this remote and challenging environment, it's said that a race of giants once lived, existing parallel to humankind but rarely seen. These weren't just big people. There was something else entirely. The Tornit are described as immensely powerful, covered in thick hair that protected them from the brutal cold. They were masters of this frozen domain, stronger and more resilient than any human. According to the old stories, the Tornit were the original inhabitants of the Arctic lands. They were here long before the first Inuit families arrived. They lived in stone houses, hunted massive game like seals, walruses, and even whales with their bare hands, or simple, powerful tools. Their strength was legendary. A single Tornit was said to be able to lift boulders that would take 10 men to move, and they could outrun a caribou over the frozen tundra. They were, in essence, the undisputed rulers of the primeval Arctic. But what was their relationship with the early humans who came to share their land? Well, it's complicated. Most stories depict the Tornit as shy and reclusive, preferring to keep their distance from the newcomers. They were generally peaceful, content to live their own lives in the solitude of the vast wilderness. They were a simple people, strong in body, but perhaps not as clever or technologically advanced as the Inuit, who had developed sophisticated tools like kayaks, harpoons, and the bow and arrow. There are many tales that illustrate the interactions between the Inuit and the Tornit. One popular story tells of how the Tornit didn't know how to build kayaks or use umiaks, the larger skin boats. They would watch the Inuit from afar, marveling at their ability to glide across the water. They were also said to be clumsy with finer tools, often breaking them because of their immense strength. This difference in skill and intellect created a dynamic where the two groups coexisted, but as separate peoples. In some traditions, there was even a period of cooperation. The Inuit, with their cleverness and agility, and the Tornit, with their incredible strength, would occasionally work together. An Inuit hunter might lead a Tornit to a whale, and the giant would use its raw power to haul the massive creature ashore, sharing the bounty. It was a symbiotic relationship, a balance between brain and brawn, that allowed both peoples to thrive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. These giants were not just strong. They were also said to possess a deep, almost primal connection to the land. They understood the rhythms of the ice, the migrations of the animals, and the patterns of the weather in a way that humans, with all their ingenuity, could not. They were a part of the landscape itself, as natural as the mountains and the glaciers. So, why don't we see these hairy giants today? What happened to the mighty Tornit? The legends offer several explanations, all tinged with a sense of sadness and loss. The most common narrative is that the Tornit were slowly driven away by the growing human population. As more and more Inuit families settled in the Arctic, the shy and reclusive giants found themselves with less and less space. They were not warriors and generally avoided conflict. Instead of fighting for their territory, they simply retreated further and further into the most desolate, inaccessible parts of the north. One particularly poignant tale describes the end of the relationship between the two peoples. It speaks of an Inuit boy who, while playing, accidentally put out a Tornit's eye with a toy harpoon. The giant, though gentle, was in pain, and the incident created a deep rift. Fearing retaliation, or perhaps simply realizing that their worlds could no longer coexist peacefully, the Tornit decided to leave for good. They packed up their belongings, crossed the frozen sea, and vanished into the mists of the unknown, never to be seen again. Another version suggests that the Tornit's simplicity was their downfall. They couldn't adapt to the changing world and the more advanced technologies of the Inuit. They were a relic of an older time, a people out of step with the new ways. Slowly but surely, their numbers dwindled until they disappeared from the land, leaving behind only their large stone house ruins and the stories passed down through generations. These ruins, found across the Arctic from Greenland to Alaska, are often attributed by local lore to the Tornit. They are the physical remnants, the silent stone witnesses, to a time when giants walked the earth. Archaeologists might identify these as belonging to the Dorset culture, a Paleo-Eskimo, people who preceded the modern Inuit. But for the storytellers, these are the homes of the Tornit. Tangible proof of their existence. The legend of the Tornit shares fascinating parallels with other wild man or hairy giant legends from around the world. From the Sasquatch or Bigfoot of the Pacific Northwest to the Yeti of the Himalayas, the idea of a large, ape-like creature living just beyond the edges of our known world is a powerful and persistent one. The Tornit, or Arulatak, is the Arctic's unique contribution to this global folklore. These stories do more than just entertain. They carry deep cultural meaning. They speak to a respect for nature and for the original inhabitants of the land. They serve as a cautionary tale about the impact of expansion and technology on older, simpler ways of life. The departure of the tornad is a story of loss, a reminder that as one world grows, another may fade away. It's a narrative that explores themes of coexistence, misunderstanding, and the inevitable passage of time. The legacy of the tornad is woven into the fabric of Inuit culture. They represent a wilder, more primal past. They're a symbol of untamed nature and immense strength, but also of a gentleness and shyness that ultimately led to their disappearance. These aren't tales of monsters to be feared, but of a different kind of people, a lost branch of the family of beings who inhabit this planet. As we stand here, metaphorically, in the windswept Arctic, looking out over the ice, it's easy to let the imagination wander, to picture a hulking, hairy figure watching from a distant ridge, a silent guardian of a world that is slowly vanishing. The tornad may be gone from the land, but they live on powerfully in the stories, songs, and hearts of the northern peoples. They remind us that the world is older and more mysterious than we often think, and that some of its greatest secrets may be forever hidden in the ice. Thank you so much for joining me on this expedition into the frozen north and the legend of the tornad. The world is full of incredible stories, and we've only just scratched the surface. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button and consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered if there is more to the Bigfoot legend than just a blurry photo or a mysterious footprint? What if Bigfoot represents something deeper, something that speaks to the very core of who we are? Let us step beyond the debate of whether it is a real creature and explore Bigfoot as a powerful spiritual symbol. For centuries, humanity has told stories of wild, hairy, human-like beings lurking just beyond the edge of our settlements. From the European wild man to the indigenous stories of Sasquatch, this figure has always been with us. It's a symbol of the untamed wilderness, a powerful reminder that no matter how much we build and pave, there are still parts of this world that remain wild, mysterious, and beyond our control. Bigfoot is the embodiment of the forest's soul, the living spirit of nature itself. Think about it. Bigfoot exists on the boundary. It's the line between our towns and the deep woods, between the known and the unknown. This makes it a perfect symbol for the threshold between civilization and the wild. When we see that iconic, shadowy figure, we're not just looking at a potential animal. We're confronting the idea that our world, our civilized world, has limits. Beyond those limits lies something ancient, powerful, and free. It reminds us that we are part of nature, not separate from it. This connection is something many of us feel we've lost in our modern, technology-driven lives. The idea of Bigfoot helps us reconnect with that primal part of ourselves. But the symbolism goes even deeper. Bigfoot is also the bridge between humanity and nature, between our conscious, logical minds and our more instinctual, animal selbes. It is bipedal, like us. It has a family structure, like us. Yet, it lives in complete harmony with its environment, something we humans struggle with. Bigfoot represents a potential for humanity to live differently, to be intelligent and aware, yet fully integrated with the natural world. It's a mirror showing us a version of ourselves that chose a different path, one of simplicity and symbiosis instead of dominance and consumption. When people have encounters, they often describe a feeling of being observed by an intelligent, sentient being, not just an animal. This reinforces the idea that Bigfoot is a kind of brother in the woods, a relative we left behind long ago. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Bigfoot's symbolism is its role as a guardian of the unseen world. It's the ultimate liminal being, existing in the space between what we can prove and what we can feel, between the physical and the spiritual. Many indigenous traditions view Sasquatch not just as a physical creature, but as a spiritual protector of the forest. It enforces a kind of natural law, appearing to those who are disrespectful to nature or, conversely, revealing itself to those who are open-hearted and spiritually aware. It's a gatekeeper to a deeper reality. This explains why the creature is so elusive. It's not just good at hiding. It may exist in a way that transcends our normal perception. It's a symbol of mystery itself. The search for Bigfoot is, in many ways, a spiritual quest. It's a search for meaning, for a connection to something larger than ourselves. It challenges our rigid, scientific worldview and asks us to be open to the possibility that there are things in this universe that we do not understand and go in easily categorize. The fact that it remains unseen, yet so many people believe in it, speaks volumes. It's an article of faith in the mystery of the wild. In this way, Bigfoot becomes a personal symbol for our own inner wilderness, the parts of ourselves that are hidden, untamed, and instinctual. It represents the journey into our own subconscious, to confront the unknown within us. The stories we tell about this creature are really stories about ourselves, our fears, our hopes, and our deep-seated longing to reconnect with a world that is more magical, more mysterious, and more meaningful than the one we see every day. So, the next time you hear a strange sound in the woods or see a shadow in the corner of your eye, consider this. Maybe you're not just on the trail of a physical creature. Maybe you're standing at the threshold of something much more profound. You're touching the boundary between our world and the world of spirit, the line between humanity and nature, and the border between the seen and the unseen. Bigfoot is more than just a monster. It's a messenger, a guardian, and a guide, inviting us to look deeper into the forest and, ultimately, into ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the deeper meaning of Bigfoot. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to dive into more mysteries, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the veil of our reality? For centuries, in cultures all across the globe, there have been individuals who claimed they could cross that boundary. The shamans. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating aspects of their practice to powerful, often terrifying, transformation into the wild man. So, what exactly is this wild man? Think of it not as a literal creature, but as a primal archetype. It's the embodiment of untamed nature, raw instinct, and the very essence of the wilderness that exists outside the confines of human society. In many tribal traditions, this spirit isn't just a concept. It's a powerful entity, a gatekeeper to the spirit world, holding ancient knowledge and immense power. For a community to survive and thrive, connecting with this force was seen as essential. And the shaman was the only one who could bridge that gap. The journey to communicate with, or ebb and become, the wild man was never a simple one. It was the culmination of a shaman's life, a dangerous and sacred ritual. These weren't just campfire stories. They were profound spiritual quests undertaken for the well-being of the entire tribe. The process often began with intense preparation. This could involve days of fasting, isolation in the harshest parts of the wilderness, or the use of specific sacred plants known to induce altered states of consciousness. The goal was to strip away the shaman's human identity, to shed the layers of self and society, making them a pure vessel for the spirit to enter. During these rituals, the shaman would enter a deep trance. To an outsider, it might look like a frantic, chaotic dance, accompanied by chanting, drumming, and rattling that echoed the rhythms of nature itself. A heartbeat of the earth, the rustling of leaves, the call of a distant animal. But in the shaman's mind, a profound transformation was occurring. They were traveling to what they called the other world, or the spirit world. This wasn't a physical place you could find on a map. It was a parallel reality, a dimension where the laws of our world no longer applied. It's in this other world that the encounter with the wild man's spirit would happen. For some shamans, this was a negotiation, a respectful dialogue with a powerful being. They would ask for guidance. Where can we find game? Will the harvest be good? How can we heal the sick in our village? The wild man, as the master of the wild, held the answers. It knew the secrets of the animals, the plants, and the changing seasons. By communicating with it, the shaman could bring back vital information that ensured the tribe's survival. But for the most powerful shamans, communication wasn't enough. They sought a deeper union, a complete transformation. They didn't just talk to the spirit. Te became Italiano. Eyewitness accounts from various cultures describe shamans taking on animalistic characteristics during these trances. They might move with the ferocity of a bear, the cunning of a wolf, or the agility of a deer. Their voices could change, dropping into guttural growls or high-pitched shrieks that sounded utterly inhuman. They would wear ritualistic costumes made of fur, antlers, and feathers, not as a disguise, but as a way to physically embody the spirit they were channeling. The mask wasn't to hide their face, but to reveal their true, spiritual self. In that moment, this process of becoming the wild man was known as shape-shifting. But it is important to understand this was unseen as a physical change in the way we see it in movies. The shaman's body might remain human, but their essence, their spirit, had merged with the wild entity. They were seeing through its eyes, feeling with its senses, and thinking with its primal mind. From this perspective, they could diagnose spiritual illnesses, locate lost souls, or even battle malevolent spirits that threatened their community. They were walking, breathing conduits of raw, untamed power. Think about the psychological implications of this. The shaman had to surrender their ego completely. They had to be willing to lose themselves, to dissolve their sense of self into something much older and vaster. This was an act of incredible courage and mental discipline. The danger was real. A shaman who wasn't strong enough could get lost in the spirit world, unable to return to their body, or worse, be consumed by the very power they sought to control. The line between control and chaos was written. These transformation myths are found in countless cultures, from the Siberian steppes to the Amazon rainforest and the forests of North America. The details change, the names of the spirits are different, but the core concept remains the same. A human intermediary who dares to step into the wild, untamed heart of nature to bring back wisdom and power for their people. For example, among the Tungus, people of Siberia, the shaman would often seek a spirit animal helper, a Iroquois, which could be a bear or a wolf. By merging with this spirit, they gained its strength and senses. In some Native American traditions, individuals would go on vision quests, hoping for a dream or a sign from a spirit animal that would become their guide and protector for life, a bond that sometimes manifested in ritual transformation. So, when the shaman finally returned from their trance, exhausted but victorious, they brought back more than just information. They brought back a renewed connection to the world around them. They reminded their people that they weren't separate from nature, but a part of it. The ritual served as a powerful social glue, reinforcing the tribe's worldview and their place within the cosmos. It was a dramatic, living story that taught respect for the wild, the importance of balance, and the existence of a world far greater than our own. These ancient practices may seem distant to us now, but they tap into a universal human question. What is our relationship with the natural world? The shaman's transformation into the wild man is a powerful metaphor for that connection. It's a story about shedding our civilized selves to rediscover something primal, something essential that lies within all of us. It's a reminder that even in our modern world, the wild is not just out there, it's also in here. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of shamans and transformation. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the myths and mysteries of our world. Let me know in the comments which ancient tradition you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that bridges the gap between folklore, anthropology, and deep-seated cultural respect. We re-exploring the profound relationship between Native American and First Nations peoples and the being known as Sasquatch. This isn't just about a mysterious creature in the woods. It's about fear, respect, and a delicate balance that has been maintained for centuries. When we think of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, the modern image is often one of a monster, something to be hunted, captured, or proven. We see blurry photos, hear terrifying howls, and listen to stories of frightening encounters. But what if this perspective is fundamentally flawed? What if we've been looking at it all wrong? To truly understand, we have to step back in time and listen to the voices that have known of this being for generations, across countless tribes, from the Pacific Northwest to the Great Lakes. Stories of a large, hairy, human-like being are woven into the cultural fabric. The name's very Sasquatch, a derivative of the Holcomb word Sasquatch, meaning wild man of the woods. In other cultures, he is known as Chitonka, the great elder brother, or the Stick Indians. And here's the crucial part. In nearly all of these traditions, this being was not a monster to be slain. It was a powerful entity deserving of respect. These weren't just campfire stories to scare children. They were lessons. Lessons about the wilderness, about boundaries, and about humanity's place in the natural world. Sasquatch was often seen as a guardian of the forest, a keeper of its secrets. To encounter one was a powerful, often humbling experience. It was a reminder that the woods did not belong to humans alone. There were other, older inhabitants who commanded the landscape. So, where does the fear come in? Well, fear is a natural response to the unknown and the powerful. Sasquatch was certainly depicted as formidable. Stories tell of its incredible strength, its ability to move silently through the thickest brush, and its otherworldly calls that could freeze you in your tracks. It was a being you did not want to cross. This fear, however, was not the kind that drives one to conquer and destroy. It was a fear rooted in respect. It was the kind of awe-inspiring fear you feel when witnessing the power of a thunderstorm or standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon. It's a fear that teaches you your own limits. This respectful fear dictated a code of conduct. You don't seek out Sasquatch. You don't provoke it. You don't try to hunt it. Many tribal elders and storytellers will tell you that actively searching for Sasquatch is a profound act of disrespect. It's like barging into a wise elder's home uninvited. The belief was, and still is, that they are a people, not a tribe that shares the land with us. And just as you wouldn't hunt another human being, you do not hunt them. They are to be left in peace. This brings us to the core concept: balance. In many indigenous worldviews, humanity is not at the top of a pyramid, ruling over nature. Instead, we are part of an intricate circle, a web of life where every being has a purpose and a place. The rocks, the rivers, the trees, the animals, and beings. Like Sasquatch, they are all our relatives. The relationship is reciprocal. Humans take from the earth, but they must also give back, through ceremony, through respect, and through responsible stewardship. Sasquatch, in this context, represents the untamed, the wild spirit of the earth itself. He is a physical embodiment of the parts of nature that humans cannot and should not control. To hunt him would be to declare war on the wilderness. To shatter that sacred balance, it would be an act of supreme arrogance, suggesting that humanity has the right to dominate every corner of the planet. The story is often warned of the consequences of such disrespect, getting lost in the woods, or even being taken by the wild men themselves. These aren't just threats. They are lessons about cause and effect within a spiritual ecosystem. Think about it this way. Sasquatch was a living, walking, breathing lesson in coexistence. He taught people where the boundaries of their villages ended and where the sacred, deep woods began. His presence encouraged a sense of humility. It was a constant, physical reminder that for all our intelligence and tools, we are still just a small part of a much larger, more powerful world. He kept humanity in check, ensuring they didn't overstep their bounds and disrupt the delicate harmony of the forest. In many traditions, Sasquatch is also seen as a spiritual being, capable of moving between the physical and spiritual realms. This adds another layer of complexity to the idea of hunting it. How can you hunt something that is not entirely of this world? Trying to do so is not only disrespectful but also foolish. They are often described as protectors of sacred sites, and an encounter might be a warning to turn back, a sign that you are treading on holy ground. This perspective is a world away from the modern Bigfoot hunting craze. Today's narrative is driven by a desire for proof, for a specimen, for a trophy. It's about validation through capture, dead or alive. This approach is completely at odds with the centuries-old tradition of respectful coexistence. From an indigenous perspective, trying to shoot a Sasquatch is like taking a photograph of a prayer or putting a price on a sacred ceremony. It misses the entire point. The value of Sasquatch is not improving its physical existence to a skeptical world, but in what it represents: the wildness within and without, the importance of boundaries, and the necessity of balance. The elders who hold these stories often express sadness at the way Sasquatch is portrayed in popular culture. They see a sacred figure being turned into a sideshow, a symbol of respect being twisted into a monster for entertainment. For them, the real mystery isn't whether Sasquatch is real. The real mystery is why modern society has lost its ability to listen to the earth and respect its guardians. So, the next time you out in the woods and you hear a strange sound or catch a glimpse of something unexpected, maybe pause for a moment. Instead of reaching for a camera or feeling the need to conquer the unknown, consider the lesson of balance. Remember the traditions that teach us to coexist with the mysteries of the world, not to solve and subdue them. Fear, in its proper place, can be a teacher, and respect for the unknown is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Sasquatch, whether a physical creature or a powerful symbol, reminds us that we are part of the balance, not the masters of it, and that is a lesson worth holding on to. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. It's a topic that deserves careful and respectful consideration, and I appreciate you taking the time to explore it with me. If you found this interesting and want to dive deeper into more stories like this, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continue to create this content. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, stay curious and stay respectful. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're rediving deep into a fascinating and often misunderstood chapter of history. The moment when European colonists first encountered the rich, ancient mythologies of the indigenous peoples of North America. This wasn't just a meeting of cultures. It was a collision of worldviews, where ancient legends and startling new realities began to merge in the most unexpected ways. Imagine this. You're a European settler in the 17th or 18th century, newly arrived in a vast untamed wilderness. Everything is alien, from the towering forests to the calls of unseen animals. You begin to interact with the local tribes, and they share stories passed down through countless generations. But these aren't simple campfire tales. They speak of powerful spirits of the forest, of giant beasts, and of cunning, shape-shifting beings that can walk between the worlds of human and animal. For the colonists, steeped in their own folklore of fairies, goblins, and demons, these accounts were both terrifying and strangely familiar. They started writing down what they heard, but through a filter of their own beliefs and fears. A sacred forest guardian described by a tribe might be recorded in a settler's journal as a malevolent demon. A story meant to teach a lesson about respecting nature could be misinterpreted as a literal account of a monstrous beast lurking in the woods. This is the heart of what we call myth confusion. Let's look at one of the most enduring examples, the Wendigo. In Algonquin traditions, the Wendigo is a complex and terrifying concept. It's often described as a malevolent, cannibalistic spirit that can possess humans. It represents the dangers of greed, excess, and the desperation that comes with starvation during harsh winters. It was a powerful cultural warning against selfishness and a reminder of the importance of community. But when colonists heard these stories, they often stripped away the nuanced cultural meaning. What did they record? Sensational tales of a literal, physical monster, a gaunt, skeletal giant with a heart of ice that stalked the frozen north, hunting humans. The Wendigo was transformed from a powerful metaphor for a spiritual and social sickness into a simple North American boogeyman. Dispersion, the monster in the woods, is the one that has largely survived in modern pop culture, from horror films to video games. It's a classic case of meaning getting lost in translation, where a profound cultural concept was flattened into a creature feature. It wasn't just about misinterpreting monsters, though. The confusion went both ways. For indigenous peoples, the arrival of these strange newcomers was a world-altering event. The Europeans came on massive wooden ships that looked like floating islands. They wore metal armor and carried weapons that harnessed thunder and lightning. Imagine trying to explain these things using the language and concepts you've always known. It's no surprise that in some tribal accounts, the settlers themselves took on mythological qualities. Their ships were sometimes described as giant birds, and the people themselves were thought to be spirits or beings from another world. Their technology was so alien that it could only be explained through the lens of magic or supernatural power. These weren't just simple descriptions. They were attempts to fit these unprecedented events into an existing spiritual framework, to make sense of a world that was being turned completely upside down. This blending of myth and reality also happened with the animals of the New World. Early explorers and settlers sent back unbelievable reports of the fauna they encountered. Think about the Bysena creature of immense size and power, moving in herds so vast they were described as a dark, rolling sea upon the plains. To a European who had never seen anything larger than a bull, this was a legendary beast brought to life. Or consider the moose. An early account from the 17th century described it as a strange beast with a head like a horse, a neck like a deer, and the body of a camel. Without a frame of reference, they were grasping for comparisons, creating a patchwork creature that sounded like something from a medieval best. The descriptions they sent back to Europe were often so exaggerated and strange that they were met with disbelief, blurring the line between zoology and cryptozoology. They were trying to describe a moose, but what people in Europe imagined was a monster. This period was a crucible of storytelling. On one side, you have European settlers trying to document a new world, but their pens were guided by their own cultural baggage, fears, and religious beliefs. They were looking for devils in the dark woods and wonders to report back home. And they often found what they were looking for, whether it was real or not. On the other side, you have indigenous nations grappling with an invasion of people and technology so advanced it seems supernatural. They used their ancient, flexible, and powerful mythologies to explain the unexplainable. The result is a fascinating, tangled web of stories where it's incredibly difficult to separate fact from folklore. When we read a colonial journal entry about a hairy giant seen in the woods, was the author recording a tribal story about a Sasquatch-like figure? Were they describing a large bear seen from a distance in poor light? Or were they simply projecting their own anxieties about the wilderness onto the landscape? The answer is likely a little bit of all three. These blended myths have had a lasting legacy. They've given us some of our most famous cryptids and ghost stories, but they've also contributed to a deep misunderstanding of indigenous cultures. By focusing on the monster and ignoring the meaning, we lose the wisdom. These stories were meant to carry lessons about community, respect for nature, and the dangers of human failings. So, the next time you hear a story about a mysterious creature from the North American wilderness, take a moment to think about where that story might have come from. It might not just be a simple, spooky tale. It might be an echo from this incredible, confusing, and transformative time in history, a time when two worlds collided, and new legends were born from the impact. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the past. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. When you hear the word Bigfoot, what comes to mind? A blurry photo? A giant, ape-like creature roaming the deep woods of the Pacific Northwest? For most of us, that image is deeply ingrained in our pop culture. But what if I told you that the Bigfoot we know and love today isn't some ancient, timeless legend, but a surprisingly modern invention? Let's travel back in time, not thousands of years, but just a few decades, to 1958. We're in Humboldt County, California, a rugged, heavily forested area. A construction crew, led by a man named Jerry Crew, is busy bulldozing a new road deep in the wilderness. One morning, the workers arrive on site to find something truly bizarre. Surrounding their heavy machinery are massive, human-like footprints, pressed deep into the mud. They were huge, far bigger than any man's, and they seemed to belong to something that walked on two legs. The workers were spooked. They started calling the mysterious visitor Bigfoot. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Jerry Crew, holding a plaster cast of one of these giant prints, contacted the local paper, the Humboldt Times. On October 5th, 1958, journalist Andrew Genzoli published a story with a headline that would change everything. Giant Footprints Puzzle Loggers. The story, complete with a photo of Jerry Crew holding the enormous cast, went viral 1950s style. It was picked up by the Associated Press and spread like wildfire across the country. Suddenly, Bigfoot was a household name. This wasn't the first time stories of wild, hairy humanoids had been told. Indigenous cultures across North America have tales of similar beings, like the Sasquatch of the Coast Salish peoples. These stories are rich with cultural significance, often serving as cautionary tales or spiritual figures. But the 1958 incident was different. It stripped away the folklore and repackaged the creature for a modern, headline-hungry audience. It was no longer a spirit of the forest. It was a flesh and blood mystery, a monster that left physical evidence. This newspaper story effectively gave birth to Bigfoot as a modern American cryptid. For the next few years, Bigfoot was a media sensation. There were more footprint discoveries, eyewitness reports, and expeditions into the woods. But the excitement was mostly based on plaster casts and stories. The world was fascinated but skeptical. It needed more. It needed to *C. Bigfoot. And in 1967, it thought it did. This brings us to the second, and arguably most crucial, moment in Bigfoot's modern history, the Patterson-Gimlin film. On October 20th, 1967, two former rodeo riders, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, were riding on horseback through the Bluff Creek area in Northern California, the very same region where Jerry Crew's discovery was made 9 years earlier. Patterson had been obsessed with finding Bigfoot for years, and was even trying to make a documentary about it. According to their account, they rounded a bend in the creek bed and suddenly came upon a large, hairy, bipedal creature. As the creature walked away from them, Patterson's horse reared in fright, throwing him to the ground. He scrambled to grab his 16mm movie camera and, running after the figure, managed to capture less than a minute of shaky, grainy footage. That 59.5 seconds of film is now one of the most analyzed, debated, and iconic pieces of footage in history. It shows a large, muscular, female creature nicknamed Patty by researcher striding. It glances back over its shoulder at the camera before disappearing into the forest. The film was stunning. It wasn't just a footprint. It was a living, breathing creature caught on camera. Or was it? The moment the film was made public, the debate exploded. On one side, supporters claimed it was undeniable proof. They pointed to the creature's realistic muscle movement, its non-human gait, and the sheer difficulty of faking such a suit in 1967. Experts in biomechanics and anatomy have studied it for decades, with some concluding that the way the subject walks would be incredibly difficult for a human in a costume to replicate. The fluid motion, the compliance of the gait, the sheer mass, it all looked so real. On the other side, skeptics immediately cried hoax. They argued it was simply a man in an ape suit. Over the years, several people have come forward claiming to have been involved in the hoax, or to have made the suit, but their stories are often contradictory and lack solid evidence. For example, a man named Philip Morris claimed he sold Patterson a gorilla suit, but the suit he presented looked nothing like the creature in the film. Another man, Bob Aronimus, claimed he was the one wearing the suit, but his physical proportions and description of the day's events have been challenged by research. Regardless of its authenticity, the Patterson-Gimlin film did something profound. It gave Bigfoot a face, or rather, a body. It cemented the image of the creature in the public imagination. A tall, brawny, ape-like being with long arms and a conical head, walking with a distinctive, powerful stride. This specific look became the blueprint for virtually every Bigfoot depiction that followed, from documentaries and movies to toys and t-shirts. The film transformed Bigfoot from a newspaper curiosity into a full-blown pop culture phenomenon. Between the 1958 newspaper stories that gave it a name and a modern context, and the 1967 film that gave it a definitive image, the Bigfoot we know today was born. It was a perfect storm of media sensationalism and compelling, tangible evidence. It moved the creature out of the realm of ancient legend and into the world of cryptozoology, the search for unknown or hidden animals. This new, modern Bigfoot was a product of its time. The late 50s and 60s were an age of exploration and scientific discovery, but also a time of great anxiety. People were looking to the frontiers both in space and in the undiscovered corners of our own planet. Bigfoot represented the ultimate wildness, a part of nature that we hadn't yet conquered or cataloged. He was a symbol of mystery in an increasingly understood world. So, the next time you see a silhouette of Bigfoot on a bumper sticker or a sign for a Bigfoot museum on a road trip, remember its modern origins. The story isn't just about a mysterious ape man in the woods. It's about the power of the media to shape our perception of reality. It is about how a construction worker's discovery in a cowboy's shaky home movie could take an ancient concept and rebrand it into one of the most enduring icons of American folklore and pop culture. The legend of Sasquatch is ancient, but the celebrity of Bigfoot is younger than most of our parents. What do you think? Was the Patterson-Gimlin film the real deal, or the greatest hoax of the 20th century? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you believe. Thanks for watching today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of Bigfoot, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into fascinating mysteries. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the blurry photos and grainy footage of Bigfoot? For most of us, Sasquatch is a monster, a cryptid, something to be hunted and proven. But what if I told you that for centuries, for the people who have shared these lands the longest, Sasquatch has been something far more profound? Today, we're rediving deep into a fascinating and often overlooked aspect of the Sasquatch legend: the spiritual divide. We'll explore how a figure of deep cultural significance became a monster in the modern imagination, and how much meaning was lost in that translation. This isn't just about a creature, it's about a clash of worldviews. For countless generations, many indigenous peoples of North America have stories about a being that lives in the woods. They have many names for it. Sasquatch, of course, is an anglicized version of a Salish word, but there's also Januqua, the wild woman of the woods, for the Quaquaquor, the stick people, or the hairy man. And here's the crucial point. These beings were rarely, if ever, just monsters. They were complex figures, often seen as protectors of the forest, spiritual entities, or even another tribe of people who chose a different path long ago. They were a reminder of the wildness of nature and humanity's place within it, not separate from it. These stories carry deep lessons. They teach respect for the wilderness, for boundaries you shouldn't cross. The beings are often guardians, ensuring that humans don't take more than they need from the forest. In some traditions, an encounter with one of these beings could be a powerful spiritual event, a sign, or even a source of unique abilities. They weren't just animals to be catalogued. They were part of the intricate spiritual fabric of the land itself. To see one wasn't a call to grab a rifle. It was a call to listen, to understand, and to respect the power of the natural world. They represent a connection to the land that is deeply woven into culture and identity. Then, starting in the mid-20th century, the narrative began to shift dramatically. As stories of Bigfoot spread to the wider, non-native public, they were stripped of their cultural context. The spiritual guardian became a missing link, an undiscovered primate, an anomaly of science. This new perspective was fueled by a desire to conquer, to capture, and to prove. The question was no longer, what does this being teach us? But rather, can we catch it? Can we put it in a cage? Can we prove it exists to a skeptical world? The hunt was on, and with it, a profound meaning was lost. This shift gave rise to the monster hunter phenomena we see today. Television shows, websites, and expeditions are often framed as a battle between man and beast. The language used is that of pursuit and capture. Expeditions, tracking, evidence, targets. The forest transforms from a sacred living space into a hostile environment where a monster lurks. This approach, while exciting for entertainment, completely erases the indigenous perspective. It turns a figure of respect into an object of conquest. It asks the difference between seeing a cathedral as a house of worship versus seeing it as just a pile of stones to be analyzed. The soul of the story gets left behind. Think about the implications of this. When we frame Sasquatch solely as a monster to be hunted, we are imposing one worldview onto another. We're ignoring the wisdom and the warnings embedded in the original stories. Many native elders and storytellers have expressed frustration and sadness at this portrayal. They see the sensationalism and the lack of respect, not just for the being itself, but for their entire cultural heritage. To them, the aggressive search for Bigfoot can be seen as a continuation of a long history of disrespect for their lands, their traditions, and their sacred beliefs. It becomes another form of extraction, not of resources from the ground, but of stories from a culture, twisting them into something unrecognizable. This spiritual divide isn't just about Bigfoot. It's a mirror reflecting our broader relationship with the natural world. The monster hunter mindset sees nature as something to be dominated and understood through a purely scientific, empirical lens. If it can't be measured, weighed, and dissected, it's often dismissed. The indigenous spiritual view, however, sees nature as a web of relationships and spirits, of which humanity is just one part. It's a worldview based on respect, reciprocity, and an understanding that some things are meant to remain mysterious, that not everything needs to be, or even can be, proven in a lab. So, how do we bridge this divide? It starts with listening. It starts with approaching the topic not just with a camera and a night vision scope, but with humility and an open mind. We can learn to appreciate the Sasquatch stories for what they have been for centuries. Powerful narratives about our connection to the wild and the importance of respect. We can support Indigenous storytellers and ask what these legends mean to them, rather than telling them what we think they mean. It's about shifting our focus from proving to understanding. The goal shouldn't be to capture a creature, but to capture a sense of wonder and respect that has been lost. The true mystery of Sasquatch may not be whether it exists as a physical creature. The deeper mystery might be what its story reveals about us. Do we see the world as a collection of resources and monsters to be conquered, or as a sacred place full of wonder and beings deserving of respect? By re-examining the spiritual roots of the Sasquatch legend, we aren't just learning about a creature. We are learning a more respectful and sustainable way to walk upon this earth. We are rediscovering a meaning that was never truly lost, but simply ignored. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Sasquatch story. It's a conversation that goes far beyond footprints and blurry photos. If this topic resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and share your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. See you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Sasquatch. So far, we've trekked through dense forests of eyewitness accounts and navigated the murky waters of scientific evidence. But today, we're re-stepping out of the woods and into the halls of academia to explore a fascinating question. What if the true story of Sasquatch isn't about a physical creature at all, but about us? This is Chapter 17, Anthropological Insights. For centuries, stories of large, hairy, human-like beings have echoed through cultures around the world, from the Yeti of the Himalayas to the Yowie in Australia, and of course, the Sasquatch of North America. Anthropologists and folklorists look at these enduring myths and see something profound, a mirror reflecting our deepest cultural values, fears, and beliefs. They suggest that whether or not Sasquatch exists as a biological entity, it absolutely exists as a powerful cultural phenomenon. So, what exactly does this cultural Sasquatch tell us about ourselves? Let's start with one of the most fundamental human experiences: our relationship with the wilderness. For most of our history, the wild wasn't a place for weekend camping trips. It was a vast, untamed, and often dangerous unknown. The forest was the domain of predators, spirits, and uncertainty. Sasquatch, in this context, becomes the ultimate embodiment of the wild. It's powerful, elusive, and lives by rules we don't understand. It represents nature in its most raw, untamable form. The stories serve as a potent reminder of the boundary between our world, the world of civilization, order, and safety, in their world, the wilderness that still resists our control. The fear of Sasquatch is, in many ways, the ancient, primal fear of the dark woods and what might be lurking just beyond the firelight. This idea is deeply woven into the fabric of many indigenous North American traditions, where the creature is often seen not as a monster, but as a spiritual being, a guardian of the wilderness. In these cultures, Sasquatch is frequently portrayed as a keeper of the land. Encounters are not just random sightings. They are significant events, sometimes carrying a message or a warning. For instance, some traditions hold that Sasquatch appears to people who are disrespecting nature-polluting rivers, overhunting, or taking more than they need. In this role, Sasquatch is a powerful symbol of ecological balance. It's a physical manifestation of nature's conscience, reminding humans of their responsibility to live in harmony with their environment. These stories teach respect, humility, and the importance of stewardship, lessons passed down through generations. They are moral tales, wrapped in a cloak of mystery, instructing people on how to behave within their ecosystem. Furthermore, Sasquatch often serves as a moral compass in folklore. Think about the common themes in many encounter stories. The creature is often described as shy and reclusive, avoiding humans unless provoked. When it does show aggression, it's typically in response to intrusion or threat. This narrative paints a picture of a being that simply wants to be left alone. It doesn't seek conflict, but will defend its territory. This can be interpreted as a lesson in boundaries and respect for others' sovereignty. The stories implicitly ask, who is the real monster? The reclusive creature in the woods, or the encroaching civilization that leaves no stone unturned, no forest unlogged? Sasquatch becomes a symbol of the other, the outsider. How we treat this ultimate outsider reflects our own capacity for empathy, tolerance, and understanding. By telling stories about this wild man of the woods, we are actually exploring our own humanity and our own moral codes. Interestingly, as our society has changed, so has the image of Sasquatch. In the past, it was a fearsome figure of the deep, dark woods. But in the modern era, with the wilderness shrinking and our lives becoming more disconnected from nature, Sasquatch has taken on a new role. For many today, it represents a kind of lost freedom, a romanticized vision of a life lived outside the confines of 9-to-5 jobs, mortgages, and social media. It embodies a pure, simple existence, in tune with the natural world. The search for Sasquatch becomes a quest, not just for a creature, but for a connection to something more authentic and primal than our modern lives often allow. It is a way for us to engage with the mystery and wonder that we feel is missing from our sanitized, predictable world. The more we pave over the wild, the more we seem to need a symbol of its enduring, untamed spirit. Anthropologists also point to the psychological function of these myths. Belief in Sasquatch can provide a framework for explaining the unexplainable. A strange noise in the night, a large, unidentifiable track, a fleeting shadow at the edge of your vision. Attributing these to Sasquatch gives them a name and a narrative. It organizes chaos into a story. This is a fundamental human impulse. We are storytelling creatures, and we use narratives to make sense of the world. The Sasquatch legend provides a rich, compelling, and communal narrative that allows people to share experiences, build communities around a common interest, and engage with the world in a way that is filled with a sense of awe and possibility. It makes the world a little more magical, a little less mundane. So, from an anthropological perspective, the question, is Sasquatch real, might be the wrong one to ask. A more insightful question is, why is Sasquatch so real to so many of us? The answer seems to be that the creature fulfills a deep and lasting human need. It is a symbol of the untamed wild, a spiritual guardian, a moral teacher, and a romantic emblem of freedom. It is a vessel into which we pour our fears, our hopes, and our longing for a connection to the natural world. Sasquatch is a story we tell ourselves about the wilderness, but it's also a story we tell ourselves about what it means to be human. Whether or not you believe in a flesh and blood ape man roaming the forests, its cultural footprint is undeniable. The legend of Sasquatch is a living, breathing part of our collective human story, and it reveals far more about our own inner landscape than it does about the deep woods. Thank you so much for joining me on this more reflective part of our journey. It's a different way of looking at the mystery, but no less compelling. What do you think? Does Sasquatch represent something deeper for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this exploration, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We truly appreciate your support. See you next time. For centuries, stories of a large, hairy, human-like creature have echoed through the forests and mountains of North America. Most people know it as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but for many indigenous communities, this being is not a monster or a myth to be hunted. It's something much deeper, much more sacred. Today, we're stepping away from the sensational headlines and into the heart of these ancient traditions to understand modern native perspectives on this elusive figure. We often see Sasquatch portrayed as a beast to be tracked, captured, or proven to exist with a blurry photograph. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the goal isn't to find Sasquatch, but to understand its place in the world? For many native elders, Sasquatch is a spiritual being, a protector of the wilderness, a brother to humanity. They speak of it with a reverence that is often lost in mainstream discussions. Let's journey to the Pacific Northwest, where the name Sasquatch itself originates from the Holcomillam language. Here, elders from various tribes, like the Lummi and the Tulalip, carry on the stories passed down through generations. These aren't just campfire tales. They're deeply woven into their cosmology and their relationship with the land. An elder might tell you that Sasquatch represents a way of living in harmony with nature, a life that humanity has largely forgotten. They are seen as guardians of the forest, and their presence is a sign that the natural world is still alive and powerful. According to these traditions, Sasquatch beings are intelligent and shy. They choose when and to whom they reveal themselves. Encounters are not random. They are often seen as significant spiritual events, carrying a message or a warning. An elder from the Colville Indian Reservation once explained that they are a different kind of people. A hairy people who live in the mountains. They're considered family, and you don't hunt your family. You respect their privacy and their home. This is a profound shift from the Western approach of conquer and understand. Instead, it's about respect and coexist. This belief is not a relic of the past. It's a living, breathing part of modern native culture. Many contemporary elders are concerned about the Bigfoot hunting craze. They see it as a desecration of something sacred. Imagine someone trampling through a cathedral with nets and cameras, trying to capture a physical piece of the divine. That's how many indigenous people view the relentless search for Sasquatch. It's a fundamental lack of respect for their spiritual beliefs and for the being itself. The constant intrusion into remote wilderness areas. The noise. The trampsit disrupts the balance of the ecosystem that Sasquatch is said to protect. The elders teach that these beings are not for us to chase. They are not a prize to be won or a scientific specimen to be catalogued. Their purpose is not to satisfy our curiosity. They exist for their own reasons, within their own world, parallel to ours. In some traditions, they are even seen as a spiritual barometer. Their retreat from an area can be a sign that humans have damaged the land beyond repair. Their rare appearances can be a call for us to remember our connection to the earth and to treat it with greater care. So, why do they remain hidden? The stories often say, it's because our world has become too loud, too violent, too disconnected. They're shy of our technology, our aggression, and our lack of spiritual awareness. An elder might wisely ask, if you were a Sasquatch, would you want to be found by the world as it is today? It's a sobering question that forces us to look inward, at our own society, rather than outward into the woods. The pursuit of Sasquatch becomes less about finding a creature and more about understanding why we feel the need to find it. This perspective challenges the very foundation of cryptozoology. While researchers look for hair samples, footprints, and DNA, native traditions suggest the most important evidence is not physical but spiritual. It's about listening to the forest, to the stories, and to the wisdom of those who have coexisted with this mystery for millennia. The elders aren't trying to prove Sasquatch's existence to outsiders. For them, it's a given. Their focus is on preserving the proper relationship with it, one of respect, distance, and reverence. They warn that seeking Sasquatch with ill intentions or a lack of respect can be dangerous. Not necessarily in a physical sense, but in a spiritual one. It's like meddling with forces you don't understand. The stories often carry a cautionary element. Respect their territory, leave offerings, announce your presence respectfully, and never, ever try to hunt or harm them. This is a stark contrast to the guns and gear often associated with Bigfoot expeditions. As we conclude, let's reflect on what this means for our own understanding. The modern native perspective asks us to set aside our desire to conquer and capture, and instead to embrace a sense of wonder and humility. Perhaps the true mystery of Sasquatch is not whether it exists, but what it represents. A wild, untamable spirit of the earth that we have a sacred duty to protect, not pursue. The elders' message is clear. Sasquatch is real, it is sacred, and it is not for us. The best thing we can do is leave it in peace, to allow it to continue its role as a silent guardian of a world we have nearly lost. Thank you so much for joining us on this deeper dive into the story of Sasquatch. If this perspective resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more content that explores the world from different points of view. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Is Sasquatch a creature of flesh and blood? A relic hominid hiding in the vast, uncharted wilderness of North America? Or is it something more? A spirit of the forest. A symbol of the wildness we've lost but still yearn for. For centuries, this question has echoed through the tall timbers and misty valleys of the continent. This is the eternal mystery of Sasquatch. The story of Sasquatch isn't new. It didn't begin with grainy films or sensational headlines. It's a story as old as the mountains themselves, woven into the very fabric of indigenous cultures across North America. For countless generations, long before European settlers arrived, First Nations peoples spoke of wild, hairy beings of the forest. They had many names for them. Semequas, the Siatkabu, the wild men of the woods. These weren't tales meant to simply frighten children around a campfire. They were stories filled with respect, caution, and a deep understanding of the natural world. These beings were often seen as guardians of the forest, powerful entities that commanded respect. They were a reminder that humanity was not the sole master of the wilderness, but a part of a much larger, more complex web of life. These accounts, passed down through oral tradition, describe creatures that walked on two legs, were covered in hair, and possessed a strength and wisdom that set them apart. They were a bridge between the human world and the spiritual, a physical manifestation of the untamed soul of the wilderness. This deep cultural history forms the bedrock of the Sasquatch legend, suggesting that what we now call Bigfoot has been a part of this land's story for a very, very long time. Then came the age of pioneers, loggers, and prospectors. As newcomers pushed deeper into the vast, untamed territories, they too began to report strange encounters. They told stories of colossal, human-like tracks left in the mud, of eerie, high-pitched whistles breaking the silence of the night, and of fleeting glimpses of giant, hairy figures moving through the dense underbrush. In 1924, a famous incident at a place later named Ape Canyon in Washington state brought the legend to national attention. A group of miners claimed they were besieged in their cabin for a night by several large ape-like creatures that hurled boulders at their shelter. Was it a tall tale spun from fear and isolation, or a genuine, terrifying encounter with the unknown? The accounts from these frontiersmen, often dismissed as folklore, bear a striking resemblance to the ancient indigenous stories. They spoke of the same giant bipedal beings, the same mysterious sounds, the same sense of awe and fear. These weren't just campfire stories. They were earnest reports from rugged individuals who knew the wilderness intimately. Their experiences added a new, compelling layer to the mystery, transforming a collection of ancient legends into a modern enigma that continues to puzzle and intrigue us. The mystery exploded into popular culture in the 1950s. The term Bigfoot was officially coined in 1958, after a construction crew in Bluff Creek, California, discovered a series of massive, human-like footprints around their worksite. The tracks were so large, so distinct, that bulldozer operator Jerry Crew made a plaster cast, and a local newspaper dubbed the mysterious creature Bigfoot. This single event ignited a media firestorm. Suddenly, Bigfoot was everywhere. Magazine articles, television specials, and countless books dedicated to the search for this elusive primate captured the public's imagination, but nothing cemented Bigfoot in the global consciousness. Quite like the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, shot in that very same Bluff Creek area, the shaky 1-minute-long 16mm film shows a large, hairy, female figure striding across a sandbar before glancing back at the camera and disappearing into the trees. For over 50 years, this piece of footage has been analyzed, debated, and scrutinized by experts from every field. Is it the most elaborate hoax ever perpetrated? Or is it the first and only definitive proof of a living, breathing North American ape? The Patterson-Gimlin film turned Bigfoot from a regional legend into an international phenomenon, a mystery that everyone, from scientists to school children, wanted to solve. It stands as the single most iconic and controversial piece of evidence in the entire history of the search. So, what is the evidence? Beyond the footprints and the famous film, the case for Sasquatch is built on a mountain of circumstantial data. Thousands of eyewitnesses, from all walks of life, hikers, law enforcement officers, even scientists have reported sightings. Their descriptions are remarkably consistent. A tall, bipedal primate, covered in dark hair, with a conical head and a powerful build. Then there are the audio recordings. Eerie howls, whistles, and deep, guttural vocalizations have been captured in remote areas, sounds that bioacousticians have struggled to identify with any known animal. There are also physical traces, twisted branches and tree structures that seem too complex for natural causes, and hair samples that have, on occasion, yielded unidentifiable DNA. Skeptics, of course, have explanations for all of it. Sightings are misidentifications of bears, moose, or even humans in heavy coats. Footprints are hoaxes. The sounds are just owls or coyotes. And the DNA, contamination. Yet, for every skeptical explanation, there is a compelling counter-argument from believers. They point to the sheer volume and consistency of the reports. Could so many different people, in so many different places, over so many years, all be mistaken or lying in the exact same way? It's this persistent, tantalizing body of evidence that keeps the mystery alive, always just beyond the reach of definitive proof, but too substantial to be dismissed entirely. But what if the answer isn't so simple? What if Sasquatch is more than just an undiscovered animal? For many, the true power of the legend lies not in the flesh and blood, but in what it represents. In an age of satellites that can read a license plate from space, and a world where every corner seems to be mapped and catalogued, Sasquatch represents the last great mystery of the wild. It's a symbol of the untamed, the unknown, and the primal forces of nature that we've tried so hard to conquer and control. The idea that there could still be a giant, intelligent primate living just beyond the glow of our city lights is both thrilling and humbling. It reminds us that our understanding of the world is not complete, that there are still secrets hidden in the deep woods. For some, the search for Bigfoot is a spiritual quest, a way to reconnect with a wilder, more authentic part of themselves and the natural world. It's a rebellion against a sterile, predictable world. Whether or not a physical creature exists, the idea of Sasquatch serves a vital purpose. It keeps the spirit of wonder and exploration alive. It forces us to look at the forest not just as a collection of trees and resources, but as a place of mystery, power, and infinite possibility. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Sasquatch mystery is its endurance. In a world of fleeting trends and short attention spans, this story has held our fascination for centuries. Why? Because it speaks to something deep within the human psyche. It taps into our ancestral memories of a time when we were not the apex predator, when the night held real dangers, and the forest was a realm of powerful, unknown beings. The figure of the wild man is a universal archetype found in cultures all over the globe. He is our shadow self, our untamed cousin, a mirror reflecting the wildness we've suppressed within our own DNA. The search for Sasquatch is, in many ways, a search for ourselves. It's an exploration of the boundary between the known and the unknown, between civilization and wilderness, and between our modern, rational minds and our ancient, instinctual souls. The mystery persists, because it's not just about finding an animal. It is about confronting the limits of our own knowledge and embracing the wonder of a world that is still, in many ways, profoundly mysterious. So, what is Sasquatch? Is it a flesh and blood primate, a surviving Gigantopithecus that has masterfully eluded science? Is it a paranormal entity, a being that can slip between dimensions, explaining its ghost-like ability to appear and disappear without a trace? Or is it a powerful symbol, a cultural icon that embodies our complex relationship with the natural world? Maybe the answer is a combination of all three. Or maybe the point isn't to find the answer at all. Perhaps the value of Sasquatch lies in the mystery itself. The eternal mystery keeps us looking, keeps us questioning, and keeps us connected to the wild heart of North America. It ensures that, as long as there are dark woods and unexplored mountains, there will always be a place for wonder, a place for myth, and a place for the giant, silent figure that walks between the trees. Whether spiritual, symbolic, or real, Sasquatch endures. It is one of our oldest and most powerful stories. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Sasquatch mystery. What do you believe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more explorations into the world's greatest enigma. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one. As our journey together draws to a close, let's take one last step, not with our feet, but with our imagination. Picture it. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fleeting shades of purple and orange before surrendering completely to the deep, velvety black of night. The moon, a silver sliver or a luminous pearl, casts its gentle, ethereal glow upon the world below. We stand at the edge of a forest, a place we've come to know through stories and whispers. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and the subtle perfume of night-blooming flowers. All is quiet, yet the silence is not empty. It's a living, breathing silence, filled with 1,000 tiny sounds that you only notice when you truly listen. The rustle of a leaf stirred by an unseen creature, the distant, mournful call of an owl, the soft creak of ancient branches swaying in the night breeze. Take a deep breath. Feel the peace of this place settle over you. This is the forest in its most secret and sacred hour. The daytime world of hikers and birdsong has gone to sleep, and another world awakens. This is a time when the boundaries between what is real and what is myth become thin, almost transparent. Look deeper into the shadows, past the familiar shapes of oak and maple. See how the moonlight plays tricks on the eyes, transforming a gnarled root into the claw of a slumbering beast, or the pattern of moss on a stone into an ancient, cryptic face. This is the domain of mystery. It's here, in these hushed moments, that the legends we've explored feel most real. You can almost feel the weight of their presence, a hum of energy just beneath the surface of the quiet. Can you imagine it? A flicker of movement in your peripheral vision. Was it just a firefly? A tiny, pulsing lantern in the dark? Or was it a forest sprite, flitting from one mushroom cap to another? That deep shadow between two colossal fir trees is just an absence of light, or the resting place of some ancient guardian, its form cloaked in the very fabric of the night. The myths and mysteries we've discussed are not just tales, confined to the pages of old books. They are born of places like this. They are the forest's dreams, its memories. They are the explanation for the sudden chill you feel on your neck, the strange and beautiful melody that seems to have no source, the feeling of being watched by unseen, benevolent eyes. Every rustle and snap is a word in the forest's secret language. The wind whispering through the canopy carries fragments of forgotten songs. The light of the moon reveals paths not meant for human feet, leading to hollows where magical creatures might gather. This is a world woven from shadow and silver, a sanctuary where the impossible feels not only possible but probable. Think about the stories of the wise old spirits of the trees, their bark like wrinkled skin, their branches reaching for the stars like gnarled arms. They have witnessed centuries pass, holding the history of the land within their very rings. At night, they seem to whisper their secrets to one another, their voices a low, woody murmur that you feel more than you hear. Imagine the gentle glow of foxfire on a decaying log, a cold, spectral light that guides the way for nocturnal wanderers. Legends say this is the light of the Fae, marking their territory and illuminating their hidden revels. To see it is to receive an invitation into their world, a world that operates on rules far different from our own. The forest at night isn't something to be feared. It's something to be revered. It is a reminder that there is so much more to this world than what we can see in the bright, harsh light of day. It invites us to be curious, to wonder, and to believe in the possibility of magic. It asks us to listen with our hearts and see with our souls. The legends are alive here. They breathe in the cool night air, dance in the moonbeams, and sleep in the deep, dark soil. They are the spirit of the wilderness, the untamed heart of nature that continues to beat strongly, even as the modern world encroaches. They remind us of a time when humanity and nature were more deeply connected, when we understood the language of the wind and the trees. As we stand here on the threshold between our world and this one, let's carry this feeling with us. The next time you find yourself in a quiet, natural place, especially after dusk, pause for a moment. Listen. Look beyond the obvious. Let your imagination roam free among the trees and the stars. You might just find that the myths and mysteries are not so far away after all. They are waiting patiently in the silence, ready to reveal themselves to anyone who is willing to believe. The forest keeps its secrets well, but it offers its magic freely. And so, we leave the forest to its nocturnal slumber, to its whispered legends, and its silent, watchful guardians. The stories are still here, breathing among the trees, waiting for the next curious soul to come and listen. The magic is real, woven into the very fabric of this silent, sleeping world. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the realms of myth and mystery. It has been a privilege to explore these stories with you. If you've enjoyed our adventures, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the unseen. Until we meet again, stay curious and keep wondering.